my name is Brooklyn, and I am a student of sociology, and that's all I got right now. I'm trying to figure it out.
That's all good. Sorry, I feel like I put you on the spot with all
No,
that. It's just that I've got an intro I can cut into and be like, this is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Just so like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like the least interesting thing I think about most people that I'm interviewing is just like, I do this, and I'm like, great, yes. Now we've gotten the small talk out of the way, we can talk about the important things.
Yeah, I always feel like I should say like, oh, I was a pilot. Like, I have a pilot's license, but now I'm just a student because I didn't get a bachelor's degree because I didn't need one as a pilot.
I'm going to write that into the introduction. I'm going to be like, this is Brooklyn, he's a student, and he has a pilot's license. Alright, I'm going to ask you the first question. You ready? Mm-hmm. Great. Can you tell me a little bit about how you first got into playing football?
I first got into playing football because it was an option that was available to me. I think when I saw people playing sports, I guess the first sport I ever saw being played was football, American football, in my front yard. And I really wanted to play that with them, but I was told, oh, you can't because you're a girl. And so then I would look for any sport that I could play, and that would usually be basketball or soccer. So, can I call it soccer?
You're allowed to call it soccer. I promise.
Okay.
You're all good. There's not going to be like a horde of like UK based people who are like, what the
I
fuck?
swear I have legal right to be here.
Yeah, call it soccer. I think that's easier as well, because if you're also talking about American football, then you can...
Yeah. So, soccer. When I joined a sports team, I felt like the most myself, and whether that be basketball or soccer, I guess it's important to say, like, it was my second choice, but I took it because I was good at sports, and I was good at any sport that I was allowed to play. I say so cocky.
You're so talented.
No. I just, like, the only time I ever felt like myself was when I was playing a sport. I just, as much as gender was pushed away from me, I guess what I know now as gender euphoria was only experienced while I was playing sports. And that's why I played soccer.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I just loved it.
That was, they gendered that in America, and did they gender it?
Oh, it was like, I couldn't play on any male sports teams.
Right.
No, I tried. When I was younger, I played on a baseball team that was all men, all small boys, and I looked like a small boy, so it worked, and didn't last very long though. No.
Okay, and you've played. I know that you've already told me this, but can you tell me a little bit about like the different countries that you've played in, and
yes,
maybe if there were any differences in the experiences there?
I feel bad because I keep going into other sports, but like I swear it connects because like
I have a whole question here that's also like, have you played other sports?
Oh,
so
okay.
You can go into it on your own.
Okay.
That's all good.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I have like a bit of a fuzzy memory about most of my childhood, so I believe I did play sports before I went to an all-girl Catholic school, but that's the chunk of my memory that like stands out the most. When I... Alright, you asked me where. I just realized this. Where physically? When I was at an all-girl Catholic school, I played soccer on that team. But the most, like, athletic and intense was when I moved to Hong Kong, and I joined a school team as well, and that was also gendered. Yeah.
I think that's been a lot of, just anecdotally, I think it's been the way for like a lot of people I'm talking to as well, where it's been like in the last couple of years things are beginning to shape up.
I saw that one team, that one transmas team, like
Truck.
Yeah, I mean they made like headlines because did they win something?
So,
I read it and I've completely forgotten.
On Trans Day Visibility, Truck, which is run by a trans woman called Lucy Clark, she basically put together an all trans mask team to play against a cisgender men's team.
Oh shit.
And basically like the trans mask team was gathered from like across the whole country. Like
this is in the UK.
In the UK, yeah.
Damn.
So like completely by accident, like the first guy that I talked to, Frank, was the goalie on that team.
Oh no way.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna go back and maybe ask him how that was and maybe film that as well, just because I'm like, that's different to where he was at in October, and that's like such a short time frame for things to have changed so much. I'm talking to 2 other people who were on that team.
Ask them if they can.
So
Look me up.
I'm gonna. We can talk about this as well. Like, but basically, they had this match. They lost 8-1, but in their defense, they'd never played together before. Like, a lot of them didn't even know each other before this.
They scored 1 there.
Yeah, they scored 1, which was apparently really, really good. It was on a penalty kick, and also I think I've been told this yesterday. I haven't had the chance to check yet. That on the truck website there are some really great. There's some good footage of the match itself. Like, cause I didn't even fucking know it was happening until afterwards.
I was like, this is so good for Marlo. This is so good. This is good thing things didn't go forward sooner, because like.
It's weird that it's happening right now, but all at the same time. But there's going to be another match in July. Are you okay to just in however brief or long you want to be to talk a little bit about Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Cool. A very open-ended question then, just like, what would you like playing in Hong Kong?
I guess I'd like to just also say, moving from the South, specifically Tennessee, to Hong Kong was everything. I don't even know, as much as everyone saw me as a queer person in Tennessee and I was treated very differently for that, I think I learned to embrace my differences in Hong Kong, because where I lived was very diverse. It was in what is called an expat community, but sports there were a very big thing because it was heavily British and Australian. As intense as Americans are with sports, I think there was as much as it was competitive, it was just also just seen as a necessary, fulfilling part of student life, rather than strictly competitive. And it's a bit interesting because I was playing soccer, basketball, and rugby all at the same time, and I definitely had preferences, and I think that was due to the relationship with the teams. But in all sports, I always played a very forward position. In soccer, I played as a striker, and or sometimes right or left wing. Because I played on a women's team, the terminology wasn't really taught to me. It wasn't focused so much on this is the sport, this is how it's played. It was more okay, girlies, you play your little best, you can't do these things, and play ball.
Right, yeah.
Which sucked.
Because nobody gives a fuck about women's sports.
No, not at all.
No.
But I give a fuck. And I fucking loved it. And there were... It was very obvious who was there to just have fun and kick about and be a part of something, and then people that were I'm here to dominate, and that was me. Yeah, it's really interesting to think back about it. I think I have a lot of difficulty processing some childhood memories, but the times at which I felt the most alive was always playing sports and being the MVP.
That's really good at sports.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that I was good at it. It was more that's the only time where I felt happy and okay with people looking at me, because I was in control of the impression that I gave, because it was focused on a skill-based impression, and that was so valuable to my self-confidence and my feeling okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Alright, just because we're at this particular juncture, and you mentioned it earlier, do you feel okay about talking about the time you broke that girl's arm? Or do you not want to
we can talk about it. We can talk about it.
And we do not have to. But
No, we definitely can. I think it's relevant, because it's why should trans people play on the sport teams which align with their gender? um, I was always made fun of because I was masculine. My masculinity stood out so much in sports, whereas like through day-to-day life I could kind of conceal that. And in sports I was unabashedly masculine. And there was a particular competitive match that we were playing in against another all-girls team. These are both school competitions. And at halftime, somehow it got, like, my teammates got word of the other teammates making fun of me, specifically, like, pointing me out. The teammates were mocking me, essentially, because they were just calling me a man. And, like, at the time, that didn't, like, I was doing everything to not give that impression. Like, it just, like, it was a very common thing that I tried to get away from, was, like, being called mannish. And it hurt, and I was used to it, and it was a very particular lifelong, like, trigger for me to be called that. And in sports, I would channel all of that rage, if you will. That hurt came out very much in sports through power. I felt powerful in what I was doing when I was playing sports. And when I had the opportunity to take a shot, I kicked with everything I had. And I think that was unfortunate that I was as angry as I was, because it was a really, really hard kick. And when the goalie went to block it, like, straight up fractured their arm. And I feel so bad about it now. I felt bad about it then. But then they didn't have a goalie, so we won the game. So, like...
Offside.
Yeah, I guess, like... I think this is a great jumping off point for me to talk about, like, why not putting...
Yeah, go for it.
Masculine identities in a place where I don't even know how to, like, this needs to be, like, collective discourse, at least. I mean, I'm not sure if the other masculine people that you're talking to, or the other guys that you're speaking to, have feelings about this, but I played like a guy, and that it is so normal and appropriate for men to be violent in sports. In fact, like, that's the only place where they get to be emotional, no? So I also felt that, and I also channeled that, and I was more violent than any other player on the team, because it was acceptable to be aggressive in sports. And I had so much hurt and so much anger that, for me, sports felt therapeutic. Not in the general sense of, like, oh, it's, like, relaxing. Like, no, I could release the tension that I felt day-to-day life of, like, trying to conceal this part of me that in sports I am praised for. And if I'd been on a men's team, I would have been average, and that would have been fine. I would have loved that. But because I stood out so much on women's teams, I don't know. It just would have been... I don't know. I don't even know where to go with that train of thought. It would have been...
What you wanted? Really?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like, undeniably, it would have been what I wanted. Yeah, I don't know where to go. It's just, like, unprocessed pain is, like, comes out when I talk about this.
Yeah. Sorry, because I don't want to, like, lead you. I do
No,
think
lead
I know
me,
what...
please. I need direction.
Okay,
I'm falling off.
Cool. No, it's all good. No, because I actually have asked this question to pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Which was, like, about ideal space.
Yeah, yeah.
I've very much been phrasing it through the personal, but I've been getting a lot of different, very interesting answers.
I bet.
So, like, there have been a couple of people who've been like, I don't want to play with cis men at all.
Yeah, I mean,
and
as a
there have been some people who've been like, I want to play on a mixed like I want to play with everybody.
Me too. Yeah, that's definitely what I want.
So what I guess I can do is like I can ask you like, what do you think for you, like an ideal space would be for you to play right now, and what do you think that an ideal space might look like generally in like 50 years? If things go in like a good direction.
If things went in a great direction, sports would be co-ed. I think. God, like the debate about like sports and testosterone and that is just like, is it not just a game? Like, is it not a game where we have fun, where we try to collectively accomplish the same goals in opposition to someone doing the same thing? Like, is that not at the core of what sports is about? Like, where I would have wanted to be is so idealistic. Like, I would have wanted to have support at a young age so that it wouldn't have been a thing for me to be on a men's team. Like, it wouldn't even be a thing. It would just like, of course that's where you go because you've been given the support that you need and you look and act and are one of the boys. That would have been fine. As of now, I've been offered to play on a cis guy team. I've been offered to play with cis men, and I don't want to. I don't think it playing for a team that doesn't like have any collective understanding of queerness is dangerous. And as much as I was a target on a women's team, I think I'll go right back to that playing now on an average local men's football team, soccer team. I'm gonna use them yeah,
it is complicated, so it's all right that you're like
no, it's had I not been offered to play on a cis men's team, because I previously probably would have been like, yeah, I would join a men's team if I had the opportunity. But when the opportunity was presented to me, like, my heart sank, and I knew in my gut, like, no, I don't feel like I'm not gonna take that risk. Like, I'm not gonna be. I think when I was playing aggressively on a women's team, I didn't realize like how violent and aggressive men actually do play soccer. Like, it's a non-contact sport for the most part, is it not? Like, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, people that are just like guarding another person will literally just like get hands on them. Like, we'll just shove them and push. Like, and how, I don't know, watching football like in a pub and seeing that, and it's like, how is this not called as like a foul? Like, how is this not, like, how are these people are not? It's besides the point. I think I'd like to challenge myself and play with cis men, but that's something I would like, hypothetically. I'd like to be comfortable with that, but am I? Like, no, I'm not. And the reason why I was offered that position was because I thought I was playing. I thought that I had requested to play on a trans-inclusive team. When I requested to play on that team and I gave my information, they were like, it's trans-inclusive only so far as in you can be trans-identifying but not be on hormones. And essentially it was a women's team, was what they were saying. It was like, this is a women's team, but we accept trans people only if they don't disclose that they've, like, it's tricky to talk about because I felt so misled that, like, I went to this team to, I don't know, it obviously felt like a gamble to even ask, and it was so nerve-wracking, and when I did, I felt so relieved, and then when they got back to me, they're like, oh, do you know, like, the regulations? Like, do you know the, like, the, I don't even know the correct terminology for this, but, like, do you know the rules of, I don't know, London soccer football teams, like, and how gender, like, it's not their fault. They were trying to be open and inclusive. But if you're on hormones, like, you can't play on an inclusive team. Like, you just, and Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely a tricky talking point because it's recent. I'm like, I think I could read the chat to you because it's crazy.
You can if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
You go for it. Yeah. Also, like, yeah, it's a catch-22, but like that's also part of the reason that I think these conversations are quite necessary.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, like, I'm obviously currently not on hormones, but I want to be.
Yeah.
And then some of the people that I've spoken to, actually, I think everybody I've spoken to so far is on hormones.
Yeah.
I think there are going to be a couple in the future who haven't been so far, but I'm like, I think all of us are having that, like, we don't get, like, we're not going to be safe in a cis men's team, and we either aren't going to, like, pass enough for a women's team, or if we do pass enough, they're going to be misgendering us the whole time, essentially, by being like, oh, you're, like, woman enough.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's, like, what exists beyond these two spaces, right?
Yeah. I think most trans people would play together. With, like, trans men, trans women, and non-binary people would be like, we'd love to play together. Like, let's set that up. But you can't competitively play like that. Like, there are so many barriers to just playing together. Okay, this is what... I don't want to say the name of the group because that's shitty, but... I reached out saying, hey, I asked someone about trans-inclusive teams, and this is where they pointed me. And they said, I'm so glad the word is positively spreading. We're indeed a trans-inclusive team. Are you up to date with the archaic ruling from the RFU?
Is this rugby or is it football?
This is soccer.
Oh, this is football.
Yeah, this is football. Sorry, I didn't know what RFU even stands for.
I can look it up afterwards, don't worry.
Yeah, so I said I'm not, it sounds terrible and I'm bracing, I'm fully tense, let me know. And they sent me a screenshot that says, the RFU Council approved a policy change to only permit players in the female category if the sex originally recorded at birth is female. And so they just sent me that. And so they said, so the ruling is based on sex assigned at birth. Participant is then dependent on the team, e.g. someone female assigned at birth is allowed to play on a weekend team only if they're not taking testosterone. If if female assigned at birth but taking testosterone, they need to sign a waiver to play with the men's team. And then in brackets, which our team is very inclusive of. There are no trans men on that team. If assigned male at birth, then they are only permitted to play on the men's team with no issue, and only allowed to play on the women's team with no contact.
What?
Yeah, and they just kept... I mean, I responded to that with, like, as kind as I could and say, like, well, that's not very inclusive, is it? And they were just pushing me more to try to join the men's team. And I said that there's no trans men on that team. I don't know. I am assuming it's all cis men. When someone is stressing how inclusive they are, I feel hesitant to think that they are actually inclusive, especially given the fact that, like, I reached out to you because you said you were trans inclusive. And, like, the idea of, like, oh, you have to sign a waiver, like, disclosing that I'm trans. Like, I would only play on a cis men's team if, like, I could disclose that at my own time. I could, like, not come out, and then, like, if I got to know the team and felt comfortable and safe, then come out. Yeah.
Like,
it's messy.
I mean, it's obviously putting people in danger.
Yeah.
And, like, disclosing, like, forced disclosure is discriminatory. Anecdotally, somebody that I haven't talked to yet, who is in his 40s, was like, yeah, I started playing on a men's team like X amount of years ago before transmasc people were also being included in these conversations, and I just never disclosed.
Yeah.
And they don't even know.
Yeah.
So
I would have done that. If I wanted to do that, I could have done that at any point in time. Like, I think I could have gotten away with it.
But it's like the tension is always going to be there. Like,
No, yeah, it's very, she's the man.
No, I know what you
No,
mean.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
God, I really
That film set me back so much.
I so badly. Sorry, this is a
No, it's
complete
relevant.
aside,
I bet
but-
if you ask any guy that you're interviewing or any person that you're interviewing, like, how did She's the Man affect you? Like, I wanted so badly to do that. So badly.
She's the Man. I feel like if like any like person who watched She's the Man and was like, you can do that, is probably trans now.
Yeah.
Because I was watching that and I was like, I can just
Yeah.
hair gone,
Yeah.
just do that, and then nobody would like notice. It would be fine. That's crazy.
I thought I was just a gay woman, and I guess I didn't really think that. I was told that, and that was assumed of me. And by proxy, sports were where I belonged.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Just where I'm supposed to be. Can't get at me for that.
Literally, like, I don't know.
No, it's alright. It's complicated and it's not like I'm very thankful as well that you're talking about all of this.
Yeah.
Because I'm like I think for a lot of us it's like sifting through emotions that there hasn't really been much of an opportunity to really think about before.
Yeah.
And then also having to think about all the like political connotations
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that
yeah.
and being like, oh, okay, we have to hold like both my own personal story and
Yeah.
what this means for like the future of sports for everyone, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah, so there's this like yeah, there's so many layers to it that I think
It's so tricky. Like, how do you speak about something that is your personal experience without invalidating like the real, like, impact that talking about that thing that way has on other people? Like,
I'm just trying to think if there's something. Yeah, you know, I can just like you've kind of touched upon it a little bit,
Mhm.
but it's like I know that you don't currently play because the spaces are as they are.
yeah.
Also, I want to ask you about spaces in just a
Mhm.
second. What is it that you really like about playing football?
That's so interesting because I haven't had the opportunity to play post-transitioning. I don't even know if I'd like it anymore. I loved it because it gave me full-scale reign to be myself and to express all of the joy and anger that I felt as like a young kid. And now that I have the opportunity to do that in other aspects of my life, I don't know if I would be even as good because it's like that pure, the ability to like uncap my suppression of all of my identity as a child isn't there anymore. So like, would I even would I even enjoy it as much? Would I be as good as I was? I have no idea. I mean, it's fun. I think I've got muscle memory. I'd love the opportunity to find out.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was 10 years between me playing last and then me playing just like once again the other like a month ago or so, and my stamina was like down.
I feel like I'm old now.
but like the muscle memory was there.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it was interesting because I was also a little bit like I was flexing like a little bit because we were doing like, you know, warm-ups and the like, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's some people who've never played football before and I love to see them here. I'm better than them because I know like what I'm doing. So like if we're doing dribbling exercises, I'm like I need to get like into it again. I was never like an amazing player or anything either, but I'm like I know what I'm doing. I know to like I don't know. That was quite nice. So yeah, like I would love for you to find out if you still feel
Me too.
and a connection that maybe is also like I don't know, maybe doesn't have as much baggage with it.
Yeah, truly. Like,
So
if it felt good playing in a state where I didn't really love or care or embrace who I was, like, how good would it feel now? Like, no idea. Like, let's hopefully find out.
I'm sure you already know this, but I was just like, you're not like alone in going through this
No,
whole...
I know, and I think that's what's like really relevant is there are so many people who really want this, and not to get too political, but we're very alienated from each other, and I think it needs to be brought to the forefront of like, this is one of the ways in which we can alleviate the constant anxiety and stress that we feel in day-to-day lives of just like existing as a trans person in a world that like wants to erase trans people.
It was to do with basically like the ethics that trans people bring into, like in this case, the microcosm of football, and how like cis people are creating environments and also like glorifying these environments that are actually like dangerous to themselves. And then they're trying to shove that narrative onto like trans inclusion in sports by being like, well, obviously what trans people want is to like, I don't know, join an American football team and then get brain damage at 30, just like the rest of us. And it's like, I actually think trans people and in this case, I think transmasculine people, especially because we exist in this particular tension that we do, are actually trying to talk about something very different and are trying to bring a whole different conversation to the front.
I think what is like the most comical aspect of trans conversations in sport is that because it has been so seen through a cis lens of like, sport is about competition, sport is about winning, sport is about like giving up every single aspect of yourself to that for the purposes of winning. When you apply that like logic to a trans person, you are essentially saying you are taking hormones to have a competitive advantage. So would you do that? Like, you, a random cis person, would you do that to win? Like, is that how important winning is to you? Because I can say for most trans people, I really don't think they give a fuck if they win or lose. They just want to play sports. They're not taking hormones to win. They're taking hormones to live. They're taking hormones to feel comfortable.
The baseline shouldn't be who's winning. The baseline should be who are we excluding from social spaces? Because out of the two, one of them is much more important.
From which perspective is it?
The idea that like trans people will come in and like steal people's spaces.
Yeah.
And or that like one has to disclose and one has to, and it's all to do with like upholding this status quo that means that they don't have to change anything about the fact that actually their sports systems are really bad. Whereas it's like, actually, like, as a very basic thing, you are discriminating against people right now. And that should be the lens through which you're looking at this.
But it's like, I guess the reason why I was caught off guard when you said that is because you're talking about excluding people. Trans people aren't even seen as people that should have any, like, legitimacy in society, yet alone sports. So it's like, when you want to bring a conversation around to it, well, you're excluding people. Trans people aren't considered people when it comes to sports, and for us to gain that legitimacy, I mean, it's also, there's something to be said about like having to make your own teams, like having to do that instead of like joining established like teams that have existed for so long that maybe even people have played for in a different stage of their life and want to continue playing for. Like, I don't know. These are all very hypothetical perspectives.
We're in the hypothetical stage of the conversation, which I leave this for last on purpose. Yeah. I think it's elusive. It's elusive. It's quite intense. And like, either somebody has a lot to say about it, or they're kind of like, I don't really know. I just want to play. And it's like both of those are totally.
Yeah, I mean, for me, having a lot to say about it, like, my position matters insofar as I'm just a person who is speaking. But it's like, I don't have a deep understanding of rules, regulations, and also because I transitioned, I haven't played sports in years. And I think that's really sad. I could have seen if I was. I mean, there's definitely something to be said here about being a woman in sports versus being a man in sports in terms of my upbringing and the difference that was nurtured. I know I spoke about this with you before, but my brother was playing the same sports as me at a much, I guess, my brother was supported in sports and was supported in enrolling in sports while I was left to my own devices. But not only that, my parents showed up to watch his games no matter how far they would be or how long it would take them to get there. They would always turn up to cheer my brother on, whereas I wouldn't have the same support from my family. And my brother was I guess what I'm trying to say here is like I was someone who, scored a lot, who I would imagine if a parent did turn up for me, they would have been very proud. And my point in making this is if I had been encouraged to play sports, or if I had the opportunity to play sports in a position that was, if I was allowed to play sports as a guy, I think I would have gone far in sports. And I feel like that opportunity was robbed from me because of my gender identity. And I can't dwell on it for too long, but it sucks. to be candid about it, just sucks.
We have not an opportunity to right that wrong, but I think what you were talking about with building like teams that are community based and grassroots based, I think we have an opportunity to redefine like what it is that matters for us.
Yeah.
Like as a microcosm, it's all a microcosm obviously, but like we're building the kind of spaces that maybe a lot of us weren't able to build at a certain time. But we're also building them using a whole different toolbox, I think.
Yeah. I think my point in mentioning that is like that's oppressive as fuck. That because it's like a matter of public debate whether or not we can even participate, we are left to our own devices once again. We are left to be the lesser sports team by proxy, and it'll always be that way unless we have legitimacy. Like I can't see a trans team being treated and seen as equally like praised in public discussion that any other team. I guess I'm saying like I can't see a trans sports team carrying the legitimacy that another sports team has outside of them being trans. Like not being praised or like having like people taking note of it because it's a good team. No, it's always going to be based on like these are trans people, and whether that's a good or a bad thing I think is a matter of it being subjective, because at this stage it's like having any neutral acknowledgement may be good. Yeah, the bit where I was talking about my brother and parents, like that was so waffly, but like long story short, I just want to say that my brother sucked at sports and I didn't, and they should have showed up for me and not him. That energy they were putting into him, I guess when I say not him, what I mean is they should have showed up for both of us. I just mean if they had to pick one, I actually scored goals and should have been celebrated. He fucking got trampled on. God
no, I
damn
think you're
it.
right. I think you're so right. Yeah, I will say my parents, they did, I'd be like, I'm gonna start this now. They'd be like, yep, go for it.
They would pay for my brother to have all of the equipment and support that he needed. They would pay for his trips. Like, no questions asked. They would even encourage it. Whereas me, it was like, why do you need that? Like, are you sure you need this? You sure you need new cleats?
Yeah, I don't want to get kicked in the fucking shins. I'm sorry about that.
No,
it sucks to hear
they
about.
regret it so much. Like, now that they see me, like, it has taken me passing to gain legitimacy and respect from my parents, which is pathetic. But now that that is the case, they're like, oh, we regret so much not giving you what you needed as a little boy. And it's like, I think there was a way for you to do that without, like, it was just misogyny, really. Like, I guess not even misogyny, but just, like, not conforming to what femininity was meant to look like.
I think it's fair to call it misogyny, because I think...
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think the way that misogyny affects both, like, masculine women and, like, also butchers.
Yeah.
And also, like, non-binary people who are assigned female at birth, and also trans men.
Excuse me.
That's alright. I think that overlap, often gets, I think people don't talk about it enough. The way that misogyny harms,
it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
I think whether or not I am or am not a part of the older trans generation, that is what I grew up knowing about. That is how I knew I needed to get what I needed, which was change everything you can change, get all of the medical things necessary as soon as possible, leave your old life, burn it. And I have so much unprocessed trauma. No, and it's just like, I understand why it works. Like, it works. It worked, but not for me. It worked because it works for the cis-normative heterosexual society that it was built to support.
They want trans people to disappear, and the fact that we're like... And
I did.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm bringing it back to the subject, but like the fact that like with like the microcosm of something like football, we're making so much noise, is like, oh, now we have to like actually think about you as like trans people. You're not just like trying to disappear and like live the most normative, quiet life that you can.
Yeah, so true. And in all the different ways.
Yeah, I think that's part of what is like they're using women's sports, safety of women, as a legitimizer for essentially what is actually the fear of nonconformity.
Yeah.
And like changing the rules on them and being like, actually, if you did things differently, you're doing it wrong right now. But yeah, like that's a wider, more cerebral idea. We can slowly end it unless. Do you have any final... No,
I was just thinking when you were saying that, I am so hesitant to say that it was dangerous for me to play in women's sports, but if that's the angle that is being taken, like, I don't think I should have been on a women's team, because it's almost for the same reasons that people that have such a dog in the fight, if you will, for this discussion, the way that they care about gender being separated. Like, I played like a man in women's sports, and I was violent and aggressive, and I used fear as a tactic to get the ball and to win, and that wasn't fair. I don't think that was fair. It wasn't fair that I had to do that, and it wasn't fair to the women that I was being like aggressive with, like in rugby, basketball, soccer. It doesn't matter what sport it was. Like, that was.
Can I ask like a small follow-up? Just, I know that you kind of talked about this already. And also, feel free to be like, no, you're wrong or whatever. But like to what extent that was like you using the pitch to... I sound like a therapist right now.
No. I was definitely using the pitch to take out my anger, but also I was just playing how I knew the guys played. So it's
like, were you feeling an affinity with the way that guys were playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think there's more nuance to be had here in this point. Is like, I wasn't like using the pitch to take out rage. I was playing like a man insofar as I knew how to express my emotions in the context of sports like men do. And that was why I was more violent than other women on my team. And that's why I think it was unfair for me to be placed on a women's team. And I am hesitant for this point that I'm making to even have any credence, because I'm scared that if anyone took this legitimately, then masculine people would be removed from playing sports at all, and that would have destroyed me. That would have like stunted my growth. So I don't think it should carry any weight, but it still matters. Like,
it's your story.
No, I know, but like this perspective could so easily be weaponized, and that's why I'm even hesitant for you to include it, because it's so easy to say like, oh, this trans person when they were a woman was like violent against other women, and like that's as much as it is true, like that's trash, and that's so easy to be weaponized, and that's so easy to be misinterpreted.
Like to oversimplify what you're actually saying,
yeah,
what you're actually talking about, and the fact that you've complicated that conversation yourself throughout all of this. So like you're not simple. Like you're not.
No, I know. I think there is something to be said about the internalized misogyny. Not internalized. I mean, internalized misogyny. Internalized transphobia that is coming out when I'm speaking about this to discount my take. I think, if you know what I mean.
We can take it. We can play it by ear. I don't want you to have to have anything on here that you would be like, oh, I actually don't.
No, I just think like. It's just the truth, and I'm scared of what that means, I guess.
That's fair enough. I don't want to put myself onto like your story, but I think like you've also been talking about like the kind of support that you needed, and you've been talking about like different kind of spaces that could exist, and you've been talking about like you know you don't know exactly what feelings you bring into it if you were playing sports now. Like that access hasn't been there. But like I think all of this is also just a really good argument for like giving trans kids the spaces that they need to thrive.
Exactly.
And I'm like, if you had been able to play on the boys team, you could have played like that and it would have been socially acceptable.
Praised as well. Yeah, exactly. But I think what I'm saying, like, it's internalized misogyny. God, I keep saying that because it's so much more commonly used than internalized transphobia. When I'm saying I'm not sure how much internalized transphobia comes into this, I'm saying that because in many cis contexts, or like cis people playing sports do the exact same thing that I did. They are just as angry and just as violent, and it's not filtered through this lens of, oh, it's because I was trans that I was more aggressive. I don't know if I'm weaponizing my transness as a way to shield that was just bad. Like, I'm blaming it on my transness, but like I think encouraging violence in sports is, I don't know.
Can you, pretty please, tell me about some kind of like memory about awesome football?
I think it's just like one strand of positivity that came out aside from like, oh, the gender euphoria of playing sports. I think playing soccer was the one time in my life where I got so much positive encouragement from coaches and teammates, and I didn't feel that in other aspects of my life. And that was like the most valuable thing, was being noticed in a way that wasn't negative. I think that's my positive moment. It was like there's several moments where I was just embraced and encouraged and praised, and sports was almost the only time where that happened. And I think that's also why I was really sad that my parents didn't support or show up for me, because if they could have seen me then, oh, how wrong they were. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I also mention to you?
Yes.
I know that this is like not technically like playing, but when we were just like you and me were at the
Wimbledon.
yeah, and we were just like in that weird little patch of like green. That was like the first time I'd really kicked a ball around since I stopped playing.
Yeah, same.
And it was just like I was just like, oh, okay, this isn't dangerous. We
should do that again.
We should do that again. It would be very nice. There's like a nice little like it's tarmac, but it's got like these little metal goals on each end. It's just outside my house. It's not very big, but it's like it's right outside. But yeah, I just was like, okay, I build up a lot of these fears in my head. But yeah, so I appreciate that you made that opportunity happen for me.
It was lovely. I'll do it anytime.
Good.
You're
That's
welcome.
just for me. This is for me. Alright, I'm gonna